All right, click. And we're live. Which actually, under the circumstances, being alive is no small thing. It is Wednesday, January 6, 2021, 5 o'clock p.m., the day the chickens came home to roost for Trumpism, the day we've all known was coming when the situation simply spins out of control in exactly the way it was always destined to. There is a mob in control of the Capitol. The electoral votes are not being counted. One person seems to have been shot and is in very serious condition. Members of Congress are thanking their lucky stars and the great sacrifices of the Capitol Police that the mob that they helped to cultivate did not get them. Meanwhile, the Democrats have taken control of the Senate. The electoral votes.
Wait, I can't believe we can't even have a moment of happiness over that. I was really planning on chortling about that today.
We've got a spectacular appointment of an attorney general and a deputy attorney general, which we're not going to be talking about.
Oh, we do? Wait, who's the attorney general?
The attorney general is going to be Merrick Garland, and the deputy attorney general is going to be Lisa Monaco. Viewers of In Lieu of Fun will recall that
Kathleen's here, by the way.
That I said that my first choice for Attorney General was Merrick Garland. My second choice was Lisa Monaco. So this is kind of getting them both. It's really cool.
It's really good that you're right about this because you're wrong about everything else.
Because I was wrong about everything else. The Capitol Police suck. Can't even keep out a mob. We are really not allowed to have fun anymore. But in lieu of fun, we have Sarah Longwell, who is about the person I would most want to chew over this stuff with. And we also have Kathleen Belew, who, if, the Proud Boys are going to storm your neighborhood, you would want Kathleen Belew to be there to talk about it because she knows the whole gruesome history that led to these horrible people showing up in this town. But Kathleen, you are not wearing headphones, which means that I have to keep you muted when you're not talking, or you have to put on headphones.
It's so great to see you, Kathleen.
We also may be joined by Bobby Chesney, who is here. Yes, Bobby is here, and Bobby forgets more in a week about the relevant law of all kinds of things to people storming the Capitol than most of us ever know. Hello, Bobby. Hello, hi, Bobby. Kathleen. And hello, Sarah Longwell.
Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Let's take a breath before we dive in, though, Ben, and just be like, it's really nice to be with all of you sane people, and I'm so grateful for you. I know I'm serious, because I look at my TV, and I'm very overwhelmed, and so thank you for coming on and being so smart and great right now.
All right, so let's actually just have let's just have an unstructured
round robin takes.
Unstructured conversation about this. Yep. Kathleen, nobody who has read your book can be too surprised by this, right? The whole animating theory of Kathleen's book is don't underestimate this movement. They're scary, scary people, and they do things like take over the Capitol. They dream about doing things like taking over the Capitol, and don't sell it short. It's a serious actual terrorist threat. It's a serious ideological threat. And so I just want to start with, what were your thoughts when you were watching your screen today?
Sure, and I'll just clarify for people who aren't familiar with my book. I'm a historian of the white power movement, which is probably only one slice of what we're looking at today when we see these crowds of protesters.
I just dropped a link to it in the chat. So there's a link to Kathleen's book in the chat. It's called Bring the War Home, and it is a history of the white power movement. coming into like the modern age. But go ahead, Kathleen. I'm sorry to
Oh
interrupt.
no, you're good. Sorry, I'm getting tweets from a million places at the same time. So I think white power and even the militant right is probably only one slice of what we're looking at when we look at the Capitol protests today, and especially the people that stormed the Capitol. But we know for sure it's part of what we're looking at. We saw Proud Boys insignia, we saw Confederate flags, we saw Pepe the Frog, we saw a bunch of other stuff that cues this up. And I think more important than that, which is sort of a set of external markers that people adopt for themselves and can change when they want to. We also have a track record of attacks on state houses, attacks on government officials we've seen in Michigan and elsewhere, at anti-masking protests that have been very tightly connected to white power activism over the last few months. So this has been building for a long time. And I think one of the reasons that we tend to be taken by surprise when these things happen is that we tend to treat white power and militant right action as isolated events instead of as kind of a broad groundswell. But we have been in a period of just rising tide of, as you know, these never stand when I do this on your show, a rising tide of activity over the last little stretch of time. And I mean, what we have to do is think about, like, there's this event today, which everyone watched. And I think people are mostly aware of Trump's comment about the Proud Boys at the debate when he said, stand back and stand by, and sort of called them to action. That's the same Proud Boys that we're talking about today. I think a lot of people are aware of the Michigan militia plot, which is connected to attacks on the State House. But this is also connected to a bunch of stories that people aren't as familiar with, including paramilitary training, arrests of groups like Atomwaffen and Identity Europa, and a whole bunch of what we think of as like lone shooter events that are actually all part of this same ideological web. So I think my big thing is, first of all, this is part of a broad attack on our democracy. It didn't just happen today. And it's something that's been building for decades, that we're very familiar with the ideology behind, at least this segment of what we saw today.
All right, Bobby, I know your time is limited today. Yesterday, by not really such coincidence, we had a discussion about the seditious conspiracy statute, which we talked about because I was trying to explain the element of it that was missing from a lot of things that people called sedition, which is, people are using the term colloquially and they're leaving out the elements of use of force.
Yeah.
So my question is, do you agree with me that what we see today is a textbook example of the seditious conspiracy statute as described in, 2348, and that we should expect when things are settled down a little bit, that there's a lot of people whose faces are on screen who are vulnerable to really serious criminal charges. And by the way, if they're being coached by anybody, say in the White House, that's a big problem under the seditious conspiracy statute. Am I overstating the matter?
We've had lots of discussion about seditious conspiracy thanks to all the un-American things that have been going on for many years now. And almost always the conversation ends up with many things wrong with what's happening, but seditious conspiracy entails this element of force. So no, that's not the right lens. But now we got force. Now we have an outrageous, obscene, un-American use of force. So looking at 18 U.S. Code 2384, that's the seditious conspiracy act.
Sorry, I inverted 2 digits.
No, it's easy to do. I wouldn't go so far as to say this is the textbook example, because the textbook example would be something more organized and more sustained and serious than this. But that doesn't mean it doesn't apply. If this isn't the core example, this is close, and it's certainly a decent fit for the statute. So if 2 or more people conspire, they form an agreement to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, or levy war against the United States, or oppose by force the authority of the United States, or, and here's probably the best fit, by force prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States.
Like the counting of electoral votes, say.
The Electoral Counting Act of, the late 19th century was
1877,
trying to be 1888 or 1887, I forget which. So a decade
1888.
A decade after Ted Cruz's favorite election. The fiasco of seeing a violent attempt that succeeded in disrupting the carrying out into execution of that law, including the use of force. Yeah, there absolutely should be some charges of this kind.
But then the next clause is important too.
The next
because
clause
they
is
are
what?
In the statute, because they didn't merely disrupt.
Statute? Hold on. The electoral statute or the
the seditious conspiracy statute.
Yeah. Okay.
Because
by
the seditious
to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, such as occupying the Capitol or portions thereof.
Like Occupy Wall Street is a movement. Occupy the Capitol by force is a seditious conspiracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sarah Longwell, is it Trump's fault?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Kathleen also has to go kind of early, but Kathleen, did you want to add something to that really quickly?
No, I was just going to ask if you also think it's an insurrection. Because I
haven't looked closely at the insurrection.
As far as I know, insurrection does not have some, I could totally be wrong about this because it's not my area, but as far as I know, insurrection, sedition and treason but insurrection is not actually a legal term. So
it is, but it's an illegal term for the empowerment of the executive.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a legal term for the nature of the offense.
That's what I was
well, I'll read you guys this one, 18 U.S. Code 2383.
We need crime a day here.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Where is Mike Chase when you need him?
Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, with a completely outrageous message.
With a hotel.
We love you, you're special
or whatever.
people.
You're right
every
to do
single
this, but be peaceful.
Yeah.
That's a 10-year sentence. And this is my favorite part. Shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States.
That is my favorite part too.
Isn't that interesting?
Sarah Longwell,
I like
how
that
much
almost
of this
as well as actually impeaching him again. Sorry, go ahead.
How much of this, in your judgment, can be laid individually at the door of the president, or at the door of Ted Cruz, for that matter? And how much of this is, a nasty group of people who people like Kathleen Belew study, but can't, just like we don't blame Bernie Sanders when somebody who's a believer in Bernie Sanders shoots Steve Scalise, right? And when somebody who's, what's his name? The guy who wanted to blow up, sent pipe bombs to lots of newsrooms. He's a Trump guy, but we don't. Cesar Sarac, I think his name is. We don't blame Trump for that. This seems like the nexus is way closer. You've got a kind of insurrectionary movement going on inside the Capitol and outside. How do you understand the relationship between the two?
Well, Trump has been completely cultivating it. I mean, of course, this is Trump's fault in a way that's different from all of those other things. I mean, this crowd that is at the Capitol, Trump just spoke to this crowd. Trump just incited this crowd. And Trump just sent a video message to this crowd telling him he loved them and that the election was stolen. And it is also the responsibility of Josh Hawley. There's an incredible picture of Josh Hawley holding up his fist in solidarity with the protesters that stormed the Capitol. Ted Cruz, the way that the day unfolded for me is I was watching, actually, I got up this morning, did a podcast all about how great it was that the Dems had captured had won the Senate, and how this was good because it was finally this sort of repudiation that never Trumpers had been looking for of Trump and Trumpism. It was a direct reflection of the way that Donald Trump had behaved over the last couple of months. That caused and I was feeling really good about that. And then I turned on the TV because I knew they'd gavelled Congress in, and I knew they were going to go through this horrible theater of the absurd. when it came to looking at the Electoral College or certifying. And when I watched Paul Gosar, who, by the way, his entire family cut a political ad against him. That's how much they dislike him. He got up and did the first dispute of Arizona because they were going alphabetically, right? So they dispute, and so Pence asks him, "Do you have a senator who's willing to co-sign this with you?" And there stands Rafael Cruz in all of his despicable glory, there to say yes. And then there was a standing ovation from Republicans, a standing ovation for these Republicans who were about to challenge a free and fair election. And
I'm so glad that you're remembering this, because we're going to forget this. This is like such an important like a series of events that happened before all of the crazy. Sorry, keep going. But like this is great.
But right before that happened, I was watching Donald Trump on stage speak to this crowd, and this whole thing was this grievance about how the election was stolen, how everything's unfair to him, how it was stolen from them, and everything is rigged, everything's against them. And so there was a direct incitement by Donald Trump. Telling and from the people then in the Capitol. Then they were having this theater, and literally after they adjourned, because now they've got to go debate it in separate chambers, that's when this all hell broke loose. And suddenly you see the protesters who had been outside breach the Capitol, and then you just see chaos for a while before you see somebody come out bloody in a stretcher, and the pictures start coming out that show a Trump person just sitting in the Senate chamber, like in the chair, like on the Senate floor, hanging from the walls. And that was today. Like, that was just how the whole day went. And so it's not like although, look, I think there's a lot about what Donald Trump has been saying the last 4 years that you can say has been contributing to a gradual escalation that has led us to this point too. But today it crescendoed. And so, like, I agree with you that there are lots of ways in which you don't take one crazy person's actions and say, that it's the result of somebody's rhetoric. But Donald Trump's rhetoric has always been dangerous. It is the reason, I need to talk about something because I've been refraining from tweeting it all day, but I'm going through something right now, which is there are a whole bunch of people on Twitter right now saying that Donald Trump should be impeached, which of course he should be impeached. But the people that are saying it are people that I have watched block and tackle for Donald Trump, dismiss Donald Trump, say that he's not as serious a threat as he's been for the last 4 years. These are people who mocked us, the Never Trumpers, who told us that we were overreacting, that we had Trump derangement syndrome, that it was just style that we were objecting to. But every day of the 4 years that he's been in office, he has been doing this, and he has captured this horrible segment of the Republican Party, pushed them to this point, which they willingly went along with. And so in this moment, I'm so angry because we were never overreacting. He was always this person. He was always unfit. It was always about him. He never cared about the country, certainly never cared about the Republican Party. And now we're reaping the whirlwind. And to watch people like Ted Cruz tweeting from some undisclosed location that the violence should stop, or Trump says, do it peacefully. Like, it is gaslighting of the highest proportion.
Bobby, Kathleen, do either of you think Sarah's overstating the matter?
I'll just say that insofar as there's some people who are discovering today what was obvious to, I would very much associate myself with being a never Trumper since he was a plausible or always implausible, but was a candidate back in the day. But anyone who's late to the party, better late than never. Much better to have been there before, but I'll take anyone, no matter how late they're waking up to it and realizing what's going on here. But then as to the separate group of people who should be joining the party and who instead are continuing to treat this as, oh, what an embarrassing little thing that's happening here. Let's modestly poo-poo what's going on. I guess there's just no hope for expecting them ever to come around and recognize that the destruction of the American way and our Constitution and the rule of law and decency. And should I go on, or am I taking up too much time?
Kathleen, what's your reaction to this? Do you think Sarah is drawing too? I feel like I'm asking a loaded question here, but is she drawing too straight a line between presidential action and consequences, or is there, or is that justified?
I think I sort of think both, because I think, first of all, I think it's completely justified. And as a person who cares about the future of our democratic politics, I think that the set of questions about accountability and about how we sort of tack back toward a center norm are really important. But I would also just underline that the people that I write about are not, at the end of the day, interested in political victory. They're interested in a revolutionary overthrow of the United States. So that's not the same as Trump and the Trump base, right? Like, they're using the Trump base and the Trump momentum for a different set of goals. So that means that he's creating a window for a lot of that activity that they will opportunistically exploit. But I don't think that he has the ability to sort of curtail this entirely for his own purposes. And I also don't think that they, at the end of the day, are in it for him. Does that make sense? I think so. All that is to say that since the early 1980s, the white power movement, which is the same, one part of the same thing that we're seeing today, has been interested in the violent overthrow of the United States, such that white nationalism didn't refer to the United States. The nation in white nationalism was not the United States, it was the Aryan nation. They're interested not necessarily in political power, although they're more likely, I think, to carry out violent action when that window towards legitimacy is more closed off. But I think that I'm not sure that there's a one-to-one relationship between, sorry, this is garbled, but I don't think he has the ability to call them off. I don't think that they're there out of love for the president. I think they're there out of opportunism.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I just want to briefly say, like, Kathleen, to your point, I think that, like, I have, and I've talked about this person before, so it's not like a huge surprise, but, like, I have a source in the White House who was a late joiner to the Trump White House, and but has been a huge supporter of the president and is horrified in this current moment. Sure. And is kind of repeating exactly what you're saying and exactly what Bobby's saying. And I'm kind of saying back to him, like, how could you not see this? Like, how could you not see these trade-offs? Like, how could you not see that this was, and there is a world in which you put yourself in a monoculture of being only looking at one type of solution or one type of focus, and whether it be just like raise the white birth rate, or like whatever, or like, or exterminate blacks, or like whatever it is that you're going to have, and I'm not saying that those are bad, but like as bad as what's happening right now. But my point is that basically, like, I do think that there is a huge amount of, I don't know, it's interesting. I feel like the conversation is in two places. Like, Bobby is bringing a really important, real question of, like, well, can we charge with sedition? And part of that is based in the idea that we still have this rule of law, and we can eventually bring a lot of these people together for sedition charges. And another part of me is like, if we charge them with sedition, are they going to take pride in that? If we continue to do these types of things, if we continue to give air to a lot of these things, like Jake Tapper today said on CNN, as I was watching, he aired Trump's statement and said, I am not even sure that we should have aired Trump's statement. And right before we went to air with In Lieu of Fun, Twitter decided to basically disengage all engagement with the president on Twitter. And that was a huge step. Huge for them.
So we're going to lose Bobby in a second. Yeah. But before we do, I want to ask him a quick question, which is, I think under the 12th Amendment of the Constitution, you actually have to clear these people out of the Capitol and reconvene the joint session in order for Biden to take the oath of office on the 20th. And my question is that right? That, like, they never finished counting the electoral votes. And that means that actually has legal consequences. And I'm wondering if there's a...
Why do they have to complete it today? They can complete
They don't. It doesn't have to be today, but
Right.
it has.
Like,
but
it doesn't
Congress
have
has
to
to
be
finish
today.
the joint
They
session.
do. They got to
Yeah.
come back and finish the job sooner
Yeah.
or later. They
Yeah.
don't have to do it there, I guess, but they've got to do it somewhere where they convene as a quorum.
Can I also ask Bobby to tag
Yeah.
on to Ben's question, what the rules are around, and I know this might seem a little antiquated, I should have asked this like 10 months ago, but like, what are the rules around being in person versus being in proxy versus being like remote, given like all of the stuff of the pandemic for voting?
I don't know. I don't know both as to what would generally be the rules for proxy appearances, although my general sense is that that's been very difficult to do under the rules. But also, I don't know what the regular rules are and whether they'd apply in this particular weird circumstance of the joint session for the purposes of the Electoral College certification. All that said, I think that there's no reason to think, there better not be a reason to think that they can't actually get back in the building this week. For God's sakes, they've, belatedly, the DC National Guard has finally gotten permission from the Defense Department to actually get involved here. Presumably, they can go back. They do have to go back at some point to get the job done.
All right, we will let you go. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you for
You're a
coming
great
in,
American,
Bobby.
and
It's
we'll
nice
see
to
you
finally
soon.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to see you all. Thanks for having me on.
All right, and then
Kathleen,
there were
do you have to
four.
go soon too?
I do. I'm so sorry. This is a day of like insane amounts
It's the
of
day that
trying
everybody
do
in the
no,
world
other
wants to
plans.
talk to Kathleen Ballou. So
Well-
let's finish up with Kathleen with one additional question.
Actually, wait. Can I interject something before we do that?
Yes, please.
Which is just that isn't part of so I am not trained as a lawyer or legal
Neither am
scholar at all. Oh, whatever, Ben. But that's hard to believe. But okay. But so the one sedition trial that I'm familiar with, as you know, is the 1988 trial of a whole bunch of white power movement activists for seditious conspiracy. And one of there are many problems with this trial, which you can perhaps learn all about from us in an upcoming podcast, we hope. But one of the issues turned out to be about how to prove that people were actually organized enough to count as a conspiracy.
Right.
And I wonder if you think that would be an obstacle here, because this is really we're really in an organizational moment of it's chat rooms and places that are immediately scrubbed and private communication sites and Kate's excited.
Yeah, I was sorry.
So you just invoked content moderation, which
well, you invoked tech, and I'm all about the communications of groups and like everything else in like these moments. And so I think that my inclination is that I was actually just having a conversation over Signal with Kashmir Hill, who is like a really great journalist and all of this stuff. And we were talking about like if it was possible to be truly anonymous and be a bad person anymore. Like if you could be truly anonymous, and she was like, her take was like literally like, yes, you can be truly anonymous as long as like the police are not involved. If the police are looking for you, then you're fucked, because they will subpoena all of these. And increasingly in a day, it used to be that like a lot of these these private companies would fight the subpoenas, but now they're just like giving up all the information. So in end-to-end encryption, there's no information to give up. So if they're using Signal, if they're using WhatsApp, if they're using kind of other end-to-end encrypted types of software, they're going to have networks that can't be solidified. But if they have contact lists, in their contact lists are enough, and like contact lists are like not. So like, anyways, my point is that like you're going to be able to prove conspiracy very, very, very easily here. And I actually was thinking that when Bobby was saying it, that there was just this massive level of like kind of like there had to be conspiratorial intent spread among this group in a way that people weren't appreciating.
One of the other things that I'm sure people will need to be looking into is sort of the ease with which they breached the building, which has to do with, a set of questions about police sympathies, a set of questions about racially differential policing, a set of questions about National Guard response time. I just saw a thing about DC police are not able to enforce. No, wait. Sorry, you'll know better than I do. It was something that went by on Twitter about one group can't enforce the 6 p.m. curfew on federal building property. So if they stay on federal building property, then it's a whole different...
Right, so DC police have no jurisdiction over federal building property.
So then it has to be National Guard.
It has to be National Guard or Capitol Police or... and those relationships are complicated and they long predate the current situation.
Ben,
but
do you know what the story is on not getting the National Guard called out sooner?
I only know that the Defense Department is not currently in the hands of people who are honorable and take their oath seriously.
That's where my head went, but I never know. And somebody in the chat is pointing out something that I also saw from somebody inside the building that Capitol Police were taking selfies
the DOJ
with
dismissals or the people that left the DOD.
So the Capitol Police are more complicated because they're first of all, the Capitol Police should have been ready for this for reasons that they're a quite large force actually, and they have a relatively limited number of square feet that they're responsible for. There is no good reason why the Capitol Police shouldn't have been ready for this. The fact that they're not constitutes either a major leadership failure or exactly the sort of sympathy problem that you're alluding to.
Well, somebody just posted in the chat video of them moving the gates aside to let protesters in. I saw something else.
I'm watching it on CNN right now.
Yeah, so I mean, like that is a shocking thing, and if that's the explanation, there is no good reason why, given the manpower they have available, why they cannot secure that facility. I think there's two possible explanations for it. One is that they were woefully unprepared, and the other is that, there's a bunch of them with sympathies for the other side. And I don't know which is, I don't want to make a bald, pronouncement about that, but I do think we need to look into how the Capitol Police let this happen.
Yeah, so I have to run, but maybe my final thought will be that I think it's reasonable to ask whether the Capitol Police are involved. I think that we've seen an astonishing amount of evidence about white power movement involvement in police departments coming to light from undercover reporting over the last few months. And I think it's also reasonable to think that this is a problem that will be with us far beyond the conclusion of this story. Yeah. So I think this is something we all need to be paying attention to beyond this one very bizarre news cycle.
That's exactly right. And look, I mean, like, a bunch of people need to be prosecuted for this. Yeah. And
There's quite a lot of video footage.
There's a lot of video footage.
It's going to get worse. There's going to be the CCTV from the Capitol is going to be insane.
Yeah. Exactly. And you're going to have a new attorney general in a few weeks who actually does not have a foot in the white supremacist camp. And that is going to be a very healthy thing to see how many of these people who, are going to end up with significant prison sentences. Kathleen Belew, thanks so much for joining us.
You are such a lovely human. We don't know if you're coming on tomorrow. We'll talk about it. But
I'll try.
Great to see you again.
Hopefully I'll come back. We'll talk soon. In the meantime, we'll just hope for a de-escalation. I think a lot of people are worried.
No one was anticipating this. So
I hope for no loss of innocent life.
Exactly.
That's my hope. Kathleen, see you soon.
Sarah
Longwell.
Thank you for being so patient hanging out. I miss you. I miss our laughs. And I miss that we can't laugh right now because it's not appropriate.
All right.
But also I don't really want to.
But
I want to kind of in a sad mood.
I want to turn the time a little bit back, because if we had this conversation starting at 1:00, we would have all been in very good moods.
Yeah. I was in such a good mood.
And that was legit. So
because the Senate in Georgia,
and because Merrick Garland and Lisa Monaco, and there's just been some good appointments, and so let's turn back the clock a little bit and talk about Georgia, because people like you played a real role in that.
So, but I've actually been semi-dreading coming on the podcast post-Georgia. I mean, well, you don't remember this, but the last time I was on, I was like, you're not going to win Georgia. I was very...
No, that is why are you dreading that? This is
But that's the kind of thing you want to be wrong about.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know, but it's just I'm doing pundit accountability. I did some on the podcast today. Just wanted to remind people.
Look, I thought the Capitol Police were up to the fucking job of protecting the institution. You're the clear girl.
And I was like, the Proud Boys are not that bad. They won't come that I don't think the protests are going to be that bad. I literally was like, I just don't think they're going to be that bad. I think people are going to stay away. That was literally what I said. So whatever.
And so this morning I was deep in what, to me, sort of nerding out on the analysis around Georgia, because there's a bunch of components to the Georgia thing, but one of them is Mitch McConnell. So I'm gonna admit up front, this is a personal problem of mine, which is that I take too much joy in people who have abetted and aided Donald Trump through this time getting their just desserts. And so Mitch McConnell losing his speakership, even though Democrats, when they are in control and they try to get rid of the filibuster and do things that I'm not wild about and that I find annoying, the fact that Mitch McConnell will not run the Senate, the fact that Lindsey Graham won't get to chair his committee, all of these people who have been just so complicit, knowing that they woke up this morning feeling so bad in their tummies, just ruining the day that they threw in with Donald Trump, makes me so happy. And so that's one component of it. But then the other part, though, is the analysis. There's a couple things. One is I'm deeply impressed as an operative of what the Democrats did in Georgia. So it was all a turnout game. The fact that they were able to hit about 90% of a historically high general election turnout, that is an amazing feat. And so Stacey Abrams is getting a lot of credit. I'm sure she deserves it, but $1 bajillion was spent down there. Every Democratic group was down there, and they built a turnout operation that was just historically large, where they were able to pull something off. And I sort of didn't think it could happen, just because everything had to come together, right? You had to sort of diminish Republican turnout, and you had to really accelerate African-American turnout in key places and Democratic turnout. There wasn't much of a persuasion game, and this is the reason I didn't think it would work, is that I didn't think that sort of your average suburban Republicans, the people that I got to know really well during the general, did go away from Trump in the general. I didn't think that was going to happen in Georgia, and it didn't. Where Donald Trump, the Republicans, it wasn't that there was a whole bunch of sort of right-leaning voters who voted for Ossoff and Warnock. It was just that the Dem turnout machine was outstanding, and all of Donald Trump's ridiculousness, all of Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell and every insane thing that they've been doing just took enough of that edge off of Republicans that they were able to win. They're going to win by majorities that are outside of the realm of recount, but it's a point and a half point that they win by.
So this is so interesting, Sarah, because when I woke up, I turned to John and I was like, the best part of the Georgia election is besides getting the Senate, obviously, is this idea that all of Trump's scare tactics and bullshit around the election being stolen didn't work or backfired on him, because basically that is what it is. It's a referendum around his entire ability to rally his base to him. And it's not that they didn't come out, because apparently they did, but or people did, that didn't support the Democratic candidates. And I just kind of think that that's great. I think that it's I think that is a tremendous, that is a tremendous thing to take away about really even though there is a population taking over the Capitol today and doing everything that they're doing today, that there is like that though they take so much media space, they are still a minority population. They are so minority. They are so small and fringe, and they're powerful, but they're small and fringe. And like Georgia proves that. Like, and I really hope that that's true. Does that make sense to Ben and Sarah? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't think it's right. I mean,
Why?
I think, well, because first of all, I mean, Ossoff won by 0.4%. You know, that is not
I know. It's not like
evidence that the opponent is fringe, right? The problem with the opponent right now
that's right.
is that Sarah is fringe, right? Like, you know, there is a fringe movement in the Republican Party, and you're looking at her, you know, and
very
I say
fringy
that,
over here. Yeah,
I say that in praise, not in criticism, but
it's never looked so good.
Like I mean, it's like she's going to have the Fringe Festival and all that. It's going to be awesome. But
we should do it.
Like, we should not forget that the people who are storming the Capitol, they're not a fringe movement. They're a movement that the president, as Sarah pointed out earlier in the show, speaks to directly. That they're they control major media organizations. They and so like I think
so wait, I'm like just
like I think the aspiration that it should be returned to fringe is a
have
valid
a discussion about fringe versus not, because I actually think this is like worth it, because when you say they're not fringe and you say they're controlling major media organizations, your movement,
I'm talking about the Jews here. I'm joking.
Okay. Good joke.
They control major media organizations.
I know. I'm with you. Like,
you get it?
You're two female goy, like, kind of like, we're like,
yeah, they're both appalled, right?
We're like, what? Like, no, okay. So,
but also you're talking about like Newsmax and stuff where
no, but I'm talking about like fringe.
I'm talking about the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal editorial page, Fox News. Like, these have a really ambiguous relationship with this movement.
No, they do have an ambiguous, but like that's I think the fact that those were what you listed, and I was not going to list those, but like that's what you listed is so interesting to me, because like I was thinking that fringe, I was like thinking OAN. I was thinking like Jerry Falwell's like kind of fucking like live stream. I was thinking of like all of this kind of crazy like Kathleen Belew, like kind of like all of her like crazy. That's what I'm thinking about with fringe. And like you were kind of like, oh, your fringe groups are like this. And I was like, no, I'm like thinking like fringe groups are like these like weird, like I think that all of these people, I don't like, this is part of the story of every type of group or activist group in the United States, good or bad, is like, well, it's not fringe until it's mainstream.
What do you think,
and
Sarah?
Like, what makes it mainstream?
I'm trying to go figure out where I want to jump in on this conversation, because I kind of think you're both wrong a little bit and both right a little bit. So in Georgia, the point that I was trying to make about the voters are in Georgia, and this is so for Trump, or here's what Republicans are dealing with. Republicans, so let's say I'm on one side of the party and the intense Newsmax viewers are on the other side of the party. And I would say that the Republican Party's problem right now is that they do not know how to have a coalition that includes both of us, right? So the current Republican Party has decided to basically throw in with the Newsmax types. The problem for them in Georgia, though, was with Trump trying to say the whole thing was stolen, the whole thing was rigged, and with Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood down there juicing these people up, saying, don't vote, they're not fighting hard enough for Donald Trump, a bunch of those people stayed home. And so the Republican Party is trying to figure out, without Trump on the ballot, so like last night was a lot like 2018, or this entire 2020 election. Something I don't know if you guys were watching the Bulwark live stream the night that we did it, but we were desolate on election night. And I ended up like shutting the whole thing down because I was like, you know what? We're not going to learn anymore tonight. It's not going to get better. But I said, I think this might be like 2018. In 2018, on the night of election, it looked like Dems had dramatically underperformed what everybody's expectations had been. But over time, as all the mail-in votes came in and everything else, it got better and better and better for them. 2020 has sort of been like that too, where it's just like taken even longer because there's months in the making, where it actually looked like Dems had really underperformed. But actually now that sort of all is said and done, Dems control the Senate, they control the House, they control the presidency. Like that's actually a pretty good run for them. But the point I'm trying to make about Republicans, though, is that they are the reason that Republicans did so well in the general election or outperformed is because they need this special combination to happen, where Donald Trump drives turnout from people who are not regular voters, not traditional high propensity voters, and those people are pretty fringy because they're people who don't really participate in politics that much because they're ideological. They were there for Trump. And while they were there for Trump, they checked the box for the Republican on the ballot. And that lifted the entire Republican coalition up. Without Trump on the ballot this time, just like in 2018, it hurts Republicans because they don't get the benefit of his juiced up turnout. And that's a problem for them. At the same time, though, that fringy coalition that comes out for Trump drives away my fringe part of the party. It's not even like the third way people and the Bernie people. They recognize they're part of the same coalition and they fight. We do not recognize that we are part of the same coalition. I am not part of a coalition with the Newsmax OANP. Like, we can't live under the same umbrella. And so the Republican Party now has this massive problem where if they go far in one direction or the other, they lose one of the edges of the party, and they lose the ability to beat Democrats when Democrats are consolidated against somebody like Trump or against Republican control. It's a long way of saying, but I hope that makes sense to people because I really think it's true.
No, it makes perfect sense. I think it's brilliant, actually. I think it's a great practicum of like exactly how the votes end up turning out and how people end up identifying with the party. I'm having I just told you, like I'm having like a similar kind of like weird moment with like a person in the White House right now. Like there's like, I think that people, I don't know, like the like his recorded statement was terrifying. Like, I think that like, and I don't say that lightly. Like I've always given this president more of a doubt than like I would say most liberals that I consort with give him and like that I identify with give him. But that statement was absolutely abhorrent and was clearly this like, it wasn't even like a kind of a dog whistle. It was about like a wolf whistle. It was a wolf whistle to the groups. And like, I just felt it was terrible. And so I don't understand how people are going to stand up against this, that have any judgment. I don't know, but maybe they will.
All right.
But we'll see. Susan
Brewer, the floor is yours.
Hi. Sarah, good.
Hi.
I am a big fan of yours, by the way. I put up a question to ask about, hey, isn't this the time for impeachment? But I'm actually in Georgia right now, and was very excited to see that we elected, a black man and a Jew, Georgia, and we went for Biden. I mean, it's really pretty freaky. There was something that I read this morning that talked about how what Warnock and Ossoff did was basically not try to be middle of the road, white, moderate Democrats, but actually came out and said, hey, this is who we are. And that worked. Now, Trump laid the bed for the success of this election. He really did. But so 2 questions. You can take either one. Isn't now the time to impeach the president? And then the other, wasn't that election result in, this is just like the cherry on the top of the cake.
What do you think, Sarah? Is this the time to impeach?
100%. 100%. I've already tweeted my call for impeachment. My only concern, so I actually saw on Twitter, which I'm sorry, I've had like one eye on Twitter while I've been on here a little bit because I'm just like, there's so much going on. Ilhan Omar announced that she was drawing up articles of impeachment. And like, that's not good. Like Adam Kinzinger should be drawing up articles of impeachment. Republicans should be leading this effort. Like if there's
the Kinzinger-Omar resolution.
I completely, yeah. Oh my God. Like, yes, you're completely, sorry. I'm like so on board with this. Yes.
And here's the thing is like, this might seem like a surprise to people because every time I come on here, I get really exercised because I've spent the last 4 years extremely exercised.
No, our audience actually love you. So they ask for you all the time. So like, just do you,
that's
Sarah.
Very nice. But I want to explain that I'm temperamentally quite conservative in the sense that I don't like to call things coups. I don't like to,
This isn't a coup.
No. Actually, no. I'm fine with. I think I'm just saying. Generally speaking, I would be somebody, and even over the last 4 years, I've spent a lot of time around the left, and I do a lot of like, well, I wouldn't go that far, and I think that's too much, and but I do think that. So I'm just. My point is that I wouldn't say impeach him as like a knee-jerk reaction because I'm just somebody who gets really mad and just always thinks we should be impeaching Donald Trump. He should be impeached for this. He should absolutely be impeached for this. He did incite this. What he has done, he should be impeached for what he was doing before, where he has been contesting the results of a free and fair election. I mean, the news cycle is going to go so fast, we're going to forget about this Georgia call with Brad Raffensperger. I listened to that whole call, and he's so pathetic and mewling and ridiculous on it that you can lose sight of like how terrifying it is that you've got a president of the United States calling up our Secretary of State. The power differential there is enormous, and leaning on him. And like, we are so close, right? If it had just been Georgia, and if Brad Raffensperger wasn't the Secretary of State, if it was Collins or Loeffler, there are just Donald Trump. What he has been doing is so dangerous, so corrosive. And the fact that a bunch of people glommed onto it, and I'll tell you something that makes me the angriest. They don't do it because they think the institutions are weak and they can get away with it and actually get what happens. They do it because they believe the institutions are strong and the institutions will protect them. That they are cynical and disgusting enough.
And they manipulate it.
That's right. And so, absolutely, he should be impeached.
Right.
And frankly, none of them should ever hold political office again. People are underreacting to how bad this is.
Josh Jacobson, the floor is yours.
Chef's kiss, Sarah Longwell.
Yeah, so I put this chat in a couple of hours ago before the Trump video came out. My question is, how likely do you think it would be that sedition charges will actually be pursued for people who broke into the Capitol today? And are there any other charges, DC or otherwise, that could be pursued if Trump issues a blanket pardon for what happened?
Well, Ben, I'll let you field this question, but my intuition is that they're going to be pursued to the fullest extent of the law.
Well, so Trump can issue a blanket pardon for what happened, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does, and that pardon would actually be effectuated.
Really?
Oh, yes, which is one reason why Sarah's point has merit.
Yeah.
And by the way,
maybe we're like really scaling into like a level of insanity, because it's all taking form. It's not that all of this
there's no
existed.
question that the president has the authority to pardon all of these people, even in the middle of the thing. And that is one reason why it's a good idea, actually, to think really hard about what are our emergency remedies. We've got 14 days. You've got a 25th Amendment. You've got the impeachment clauses. But, I think it's a real possibility that the president could pardon a bunch of people. So Linda has a question that she doesn't want to be brought on, so I'm going to read it. Is there any indication of what Cruz et al. And their counterparts in the House will do once the process resumes later today? What should they do? So I'm going to throw that question to Sarah, but I do want to say that it is not obvious to me at all that the process will resume later today. It has to resume relatively expeditiously because Biden can't take the oath of office until that process is complete, and he has to take the oath of office on the 20th at noon, or we have a presidential issue. So he's got but it is not, if you're going to have the vice president presiding over a joint session of Congress, that area has to be swept by the Secret Service. These are people, somebody planted a pipe bomb at the RNC today. There is no way the Secret Service is letting senior officials of government, the executive branch, let alone the Capitol Police, will not let, that space be used without a really careful sweep now. So I don't think we're talking about resuming later this evening. But that said, the question is a very valid one, Sarah.
Yeah.
How chastened does this have the effect of okay, this got out of control, now we just have to count the fucking electoral votes? Or do they double down and say, hey, this is what you guys wrought by not taking our voter fraud allegations seriously? What happens now? Does Mitch McConnell use this to seize control of the situation? The Republican Party. What happens now?
A lot of these people are strangers to me. I can't, because Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham are different human beings than they were 4 years. They don't say the same things. They don't stand for the same things. Ted Cruz has always been terrible, sort of uniquely horrible. But he's also a committed, in his own words, a constitutional conservative. And I often agreed with him on certain things that he said. He is not that person anymore. He will come up with any reason to kind of, be a regular Trump throne sniffer. That's a gross phrase that JVL uses all the time, but is apt for a Ted Cruz. I'm concerned they won't be chastened. I've been sort of following the Cruz on Twitter, and he's in a fight with Beto O'Rourke because lots of people are saying things to him like, "This is your fault. You did this."
To Beto or to?
Beto was saying it to Ted, and Ted kind of came back because I think Beto accused him of either sedition or insurrection, and Ted Cruz kind of did one of these gaslighting things like, "This is a moment for unity, and how dare you accuse me of something like this? That is horrible of you." So I don't know that I think Josh Hawley suddenly gets religion. That being said, I don't know what it's like inside the Capitol right now, but my guess is that was scary as shit. That they are freaked out. That the reports of Mitt Romney saying, "You guys did this," and there is a real outcry for impeachment going on. A whole bunch of people who have been, nominally in Trump's corner, willing to defend him on a bunch of things, or outright calling for impeachment right now. If you were watching the news and listening to the hosts, they were all just kind of letting it all go. And so I just think that the outrage right now could cause them to sort of, and my understanding is they have 6 days. So it's possible they might take a beat, but the level of, so I think it's less about the Republicans being chastened and the extent to which Republicans like Adam Kinzinger and Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski are radicalized, and Ben Sass and Mitch McConnell, and start to be you guys, it wouldn't shock me if they got really mad and in their face. And the other thing you got to remember is
Mitch McConnell writing the Port Huron statement. And
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I'm going to come. I don't know Susan Collins for shit, but I know Lisa Murkowski, and I just don't think she's literally, I think her entire political capital hinges on the fact that she's a hinge. That's basically that is I think that she loves the fact that she can be both, Liz identifies as Republican most days, but can occasionally be persuaded. I don't know like what that's and like obviously it's not going to have as much power in a 51-49 Congress or Senate, but it's not for nothing. And so I don't know. That's kind of like my Lisa Murkowski take. But
so you think the plausible is just that they're rocked back on their heels and on the defensive from Republicans, not from Democrats?
The problem is always where you see something absolutely extraordinary happen. It's happened many times over the last 4 years. The call with Ukraine, it happened just this week or last week with the call with Brad Raffensperger. And you think, this is it. This must break the spell. This must be the things that makes, because it's so crazy and insane. And people literally, they what about it? They both sides it. They figure out a way. And
even McConnell's speech today. McConnell, even in doing the right thing today, takes the, blames the Democrats for setting this precedent. The Democrats didn't set this precedent.
No,
Go
ahead, Sarah. No, Sarah, go ahead.
This has been the problem with the whataboutism stuff from the beginning, is that there's always like a hint of truth to it, right? Like Barbara Boxer did object to certifying the electors, and a bunch of Democrats did say, like, we applaud our colleague for raising these important issues. But it was done in a context where, like, the candidate had already not seceded. I'm just blanking on the word, but like nobody there was no. First of all, they didn't have like the Senate sign it. It wasn't in writing. They weren't constantly inciting people. Like they were using it to make like a bit point, and everybody kind of politely, whatever. It's not the same thing. Like, why aren't you guys helping me remember the word that I want to know?
I don't know.
Conceded. Thank you, Lauren Roberts, for helping me. Like the candidate had already conceded. Like things were moving forward. It's absolutely different in kind. People talk about Stacey Abrams. Like Stacey Abrams, Republicans do this all the time. Like, well, she didn't concede the election. And it's true that like she was claiming sort of this Pyrrhic victory and talking about voter suppression. But it's not like she was like calling the guard, I refuse to do it. And also she wasn't in a position of power when it happened.
Yeah, it's actually not true. So if you go back to Stacey Abrams' statement, and I am not Stacey Abrams' biggest fan in the world, but this is a calumny that people have created and repeated so many times that people accept it and don't go back in the statement. Stacey Abrams said very clearly that she accepts that under the rules that Georgia conducts an election, she lost. Now, if Donald Trump would say those words today, I would thank him. Stacey Abrams didn't say, she didn't lie. She didn't say, the election was stolen. She had policy problems, some of which, by the way, have a lot of merit, with the way the person she was running against, who was in the Secretary of State's job, purged the voter rolls of large numbers of people, and people didn't get a chance to vote. She conceded that under the rules that existed, she lost. And I don't actually have again, I'm not, one of these people who valorizes Stacey Abrams. I have no problem with what she did. And by the way,
I'm not arguing. I'm not saying that she did. I'm just trying to. All I'm explaining is the way that like the whataboutism works, and the way that it like seeps in, where they'll take this like little thing and like try to create it like. And the fact is I have started to take my whether I will take somebody seriously or not now. Like the lines that I use is whether or not they are a good job of weighing in the balance. The impact something will have, right? Like the difference between what Barbara, like if they can't sufficiently draw a distinction between what Barbara Boxer did and what Trump's doing right now, they shouldn't be taken seriously as a person. Also, I just have to read you what Trump just tweeted. Just listen to this.
Wait, he tweeted something?
There are the things he just did. Yeah. These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from the great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever.
Well,
he is.
No, we can't end there, Ben. Like, I'm really sorry. Like, this, like, straight up, like, the only thing that I can remember happening on the Congress floor in my years of American history is the 1850, like, wait, hold on. It was like 1856. Yes, okay, I was right. The 1856 kind of fight between, like, Charles Sumner and Preston Brooks, when they, like, literally, like, Charles Sumner was, like, this Massachusetts abolitionist who
caned on the floor of the Senate.
On the floor of the Senate. Like, you learn about this in American history. And I have to say that it strikes you, no pun intended, when you learn about it as, like, this moment of, like, crazy kind of, like, not just brutalism, it's like pugilism. I guess that was the word of the day, Ben. This crazy pugilism that happened, like, that was just like, that is like, you're just like, wow, we don't do that anymore. Like, we don't do that. We don't cane people to death. We don't cane people on the floor of the Senate. It wasn't caned to death. He was
Some
fine.
people on the floor of the Senate need to be caned, actually.
Yes, that's actually true.
So I want to...
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, like, bring us home.
I want to bring us home with a statement from a president. Because former President George W. Bush just issued a statement. And George W. Bush issued a statement on the insurrection at the Capitol, is how it's headlined. And it says, Laura and I are watching the scenes of mayhem unfolding at the seat of our nation's government in disbelief and dismay. It is a sickening and heartbreaking sight. This is how election results are disputed in a banana republic, not our democratic republic. I'm appalled by the reckless behavior of some political leaders since the election and by the lack of respect shown today for our institutions, our traditions, and our law enforcement. The violent assault on the Capitol and disruption of a constitutionally mandated meeting of Congress was undertaken by people whose passions have been inflamed by falsehoods and false hopes. Insurrection could do grave damage to our nation and reputation. In the United States of America, it is the fundamental responsibility of every patriotic citizen to support the law. To those who are disappointed in the results of the election, our country is more important than the politics of the moment. Truly. Let the officials elected by the people fulfill their duties and represent our voices in peace and safety. May God continue to bless the United States of America. I only have two problems with that statement. One is it does not name the president specifically, and the second is that it's a little bit late. Which I think Sarah is a point Sarah has been making.
Can we just give it a moment for, like, it is a very lovely, it is a great and strong statement.
It is other than those two things, it is a great statement, and it is exactly what a political leader should sound like in this
Has Clinton said something?
Clinton is not a Republican. I would hope he would say something, but it doesn't matter as much. Right. We should wrap, among other things, because I have to record an emergency podcast for Lawfare in a few minutes. Sarah Longwell, you're the greatest of great Americans.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You're amazing. I love having you on. It's always fun.
We didn't have a poll today, so here's a very quick one. Is storming the Capitol
bad?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. No. All right. There's a poll. Let's see how yes does on the poll. We don't know who's gonna. It's got two votes so far. Yeah, we don't know who's gonna be on the
tomorrow
on the podcast tomorrow.
It's supposed to be Kathleen, but
it may be Kathleen, it may be somebody else, but in any event, it'll be 22 hours and 51 minutes from now. And until then, we don't have fun anymore. We just don't have fun anymore. Thugs taking over the Capitol, and get rid of them, prosecute the shit out of them, and
we just have prosecutions.
And Congress, do your job and certify and count the electoral votes so that we can have a fucking new president. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, guys. It was great to see everybody. Thanks for everyone in the chat. Love being here.